Hey YouTube, it's Marita, and welcome to another edition of the Nurse Lounge. And in this edition, we are going to talk about 10 tips in which you could be successful if you are a new nurse and survive that first year of nursing. So, if this is something that you're interested in, stay tuned. All right, so we're going to jump right in. I have my top 10 tips written down. So, per usual, you will see me look down from time to time just to make sure that I stay on track and that I don't forget anything. So, we're going to start with number one. And again, these are the top 10 tips for your first year survival as a new nurse. So, you just graduated from nursing school and you have either taken your boards or you have not, but you are already working as a novice graduate nurse. So, tip number one, it is okay not to know everything. So, when it comes to nursing, you have to understand that nursing school only provides you a foundation and a foundation only. So, I like to use an analogy of a house. So, if you think about a house is built on a foundation. So, once your foundation is laid for your house, you don't have a house. You just have the basics for your house. The foundation would hold your house up, so to speak. Your house is then built and you have a completed project. When it comes to your nursing career is the rest of your house. It is built over time. And so therefore you are not expected to come out to know everything. You just need to know how to be safe and you need to know the basics. Whatever they told you to know in nursing school, whatever you were tested on in terms of your NCLEX, it is knowing how to be minimally safe. So you need to be keeping those things in mind. Number two, be sure that you are getting a job that is the best fit for you. So if you know, or I'm gonna use me as an example, I don't do death well. Okay, I don't do death well at all. So hospice, as an example, not that you'll get a job in hospice as a new grad, but I'm just saying hospice would not be a job for me, if that makes sense. That's all that really is providing palliative care, comfort measures until someone transitions and passes away. That is needed, but that's not a good fit for me because I know I don't handle that well. So if you know that you don't handle certain situations well, don't get a job there. If you know that you don't like or don't care for drug addicts, then you don't want a job that probably at a inner city hospital or a government hospital or a county hospital. You're going to see a lot of them there. Then don't work in the ER because they'll come through the ER. Don't work in the ICU because guess what? When they overdose, where they're going to go? To the ICU. So keep those things in mind. Make sure where you ever work is a good fit for you. Number three, treat every activity as a opportunity to learn. So that basically means that even though you may not be interested in it, make sure that, you know what, let me see how this works because I never know when I may need to use this again. I, as an example, am a OB nurse, but I have the opportunity from time to time to go to med surg or in clinical experiences, get to see things that I would never see on my floor. So I love going to learn new things about how to care for patients. And so, do you realize I just found out a year ago that there's a such thing as a rectal catheter. I never knew such thing existed. In OB, of course, we don't use something like that. So I never knew that there was a catheter that goes in the rectum for people with, say, C. diff or different disease processes in which they're having loose stools that keeps on coming, so they have to have a rectal catheter. And so again, I learned that last year, and I've been a nurse for almost 15 years. So that's just an example. Never lose out or miss out on an opportunity to learn something new. Take it as a learning experience, gain knowledge from it, store it away in your brain, and then you move on to something else. All right, number four, ask questions. Now, I always tell students to be self-directed, and basically what that means is they take the initiative to look up things themselves or go seek the answers for themselves. However, at the end of that, and you still do not know, ask questions. No one is going to know what you don't know or understand if you don't ask a question. So do not be afraid to ask questions. If you happen to have a preceptor or around nurses that tend to are put off by your questions, or they're just not receptive to you asking questions, they need to go ask someone else. And that's just that simple. Ask someone else, or report them to a supervisor or a manager that every time I go ask a question to them that is a valid question, they seem to be annoyed or bothered by me doing so, or by you doing so. So be mindful that it's appropriate to ask questions. I'd rather you ask, me personally, rather you ask questions than to go off and do something crazy and then kill someone, and then we can't correct someone who's dead. But even still, if you go and give a wrong medication and you didn't ask a question, you cause a sentinel event potentially. And so therefore there's more paperwork. We have to watch the patient closely. You could have just asked a question. Number 5, ask for help every time you need it. So there are certain things that you may have never seen in nursing school, or you've never seen how they use it, and you need help. And so until you master how to do something or become proficient at it, you probably will need to ask for help every single time, and that's okay. Again, like I just said, if they become annoyed by that, then you may need to find someone else who can better help you and not be so frustrated with you asking questions about, how to do certain procedures and things like that. A prime example for me is starting a PCA pump. For Believe it or not, we have PCA pumps on our floor, but patients come over with them already started. So it's very rare, if ever, if I have to start a PCA on my own on my unit. So every time we have a PCA that needs to be started, I have to get help. I've been a nurse again for almost 15 years, and I've probably started a PCA twice. And so the last time had to be at least 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe 5 or 6, but either way, it's been a long time. And I asked the nurse, I said, could you please show me how to do it? Don't push the buttons for me. Tell me what to push, because for me, I'm a kinesthetic learner. So I have to push and touch and feel and all that stuff in order for me to understand how to do it. Well, she said, I can't teach it. I don't know how to do that. So she just started pushing buttons and said, just watch me. Okay, well, I lost it at that point. I'm like, I have no idea how to start this PCA. So she did it for me and it was done, but at the same time, I gained nothing from that. So I guarantee the next time I have to start a PCA, I'm gonna have to call somebody and say, hey, can you help me do that? There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And again, I'm asking for help 15 years down the road. So you're gonna need help that first year. Number 6, refresh your memory. So that basically means that you may have to turn to your textbooks from time to time. I typically tell nursing students, don't revert back to your textbooks, because typically how the textbooks works and how the real world works, or the NCLEX world versus the real clinical world, are vastly different. But if it's just a general concept about diabetes, hypertension, or just certain parameters like that, then feel free to reuse your textbook as a refresher. But if not, then go to your hospital's intranet, and they will typically have information regarding each disease process and the policies and procedures that that facility uses regarding care for the patient with that disease process. So if you don't want to use your book, or can't, or is outdated, you don't have it, feel free. Actually, I recommend before you go to your book, go to the intranet at your facility, because it's going to tell you the protocols that are required for your facility, your floor, your unit, your patients, not some generalized text that tells you, generally speaking, how to do something. So a good example that I use on my floor, we have some doctors who don't recommend, or who want to be called, who wants to be called if their patient has a fever above 100.4. And then we have other physicians who want to be called if their patient has a fever above 101. And as you know, those are two greatly different temperatures, 100.4 and 101. Most textbooks don't even go up to 100.4. So that's just an example. If you're using your textbook as an example to say, when should I call my physician regarding a certain situation, you may be calling and getting cursed out, because that's not the parameter set by that physician at that facility on that unit. So you actually want to gravitate more so towards your policies on your unit versus a textbook. Number 7, learn from, or learn, what does it say? Learn the art of prioritization. So, prioritization basically means what is most important. Is it important to hand this patient this Sprite or to attend this code? Now that's a kind of a silly example because there are two extremes, obviously, but there's some things that kind of come a little closer in terms of importance, shall I say? And you're gonna have to pick which one do you want to do or should I do first. Don't be afraid to delegate a task to someone else. So maybe there's a division clerk handy, or maybe there is a another nurse who's not doing anything, and he or she is able to go take your patient a Sprite for him or her, versus you going to take the Sprite versus going to attend this code, or whatever the situation may be. Just know you have to know what's more important, and you do what's more important. Number 8, bond with your team. So it's nothing like going to a new hospital or a new unit as a new nurse, let alone someone who is experienced, and being the new kid on the block, and you're wanting to get to know the nurses. You're excited about being a new nurse, and you're excited about having your colleagues support you and things like that. So in order for them to support you, you have to support them. So you want to get to know the nurses. You want to make sure that you are respectful, professional, and you are someone who is helpful to them as well. So if it's something that you're able to do for them, do it. If they're needing help with, I don't know, maybe they need someone to hand a Sprite to someone, one of their patients, offer to do it, because there's going to come a time where you're going to need their assistance. And sometimes in the world of nursing, it can be kind of, tit for tat. If you don't do for me, I'm not doing for you, is sometimes the mindset of some of these nurses. So definitely, if you want to have an easier time getting through this first year, take some time to get to know your team members, take some time to get to know your management, take some time to to know your division clerk, your techs. And that's another thing. This is a side note. Do not disrespect your techs. They are not beneath you. They are an extension of you. So that's something to be mindful of. They are an extension. They're not beneath you. They have a different role than you have. Yes, you can do tech work. You've been trained to do so. However, if you have help in that area and you treat your tech good, he or she will treat you good. Your patients will be taken care of. Be mindful of that. Number 9, trust your struggles. What does that mean? Trusting your struggles basically means that you will be discouraged from time to time. You will question as to why did I even start this career. You will even cry. You'll have your moments where you're off in a corner somewhere. You'll have your moments where I'm going to call in because I don't feel like going to work and dealing with this BS. However, just know this is part of your testimony. Nursing is hard work. Getting along with different people is hard work. You are in a women driven profession, and you know how women can be kind of catty and cliquey and things like that. You know, women can be hormonal. We get hot, we get cold, we have this going on, that going on. We're mothers, we are grandmothers, we are wives, we are sisters, we are all kinds of things to our family and friends. And so therefore we are pulled in many different directions. And sometimes you kind of deal with those struggles at work when you have those things going on. So don't be discouraged by things that don't go well. I've known nurses who will come and say, my whole day was a disaster. That's just kind of how that day happened to be. Basically, go home, take your clothes off, shower, eat, go to bed, and then get up again with a fresh day, with a fresh new mindset that today's going to be a better day. I personally pray before I get up, or not before I go to work, but before I get on the elevator. So I get to work, and then while I'm on the elevator, I am saying a prayer like, Lord, please, don't let nobody test me today. Let me have a good day. Don't let anything happen to these patients. I pray for some serenity, for some patience for myself, because sometimes I get easily annoyed when I've told a patient something 15,000 times, and 15,001, they're asking me the same question again. Or not necessarily the same patient, but when you're asked the same question by many patients, it does get kind of annoying, but you have to understand this is their first time. So, I have to pray for patience for myself too. So say a prayer, it will get better. Does this mean you won't have bad days? Absolutely not. Again, 15 years in and I still have bad days. Days where I even say, at the end of this shift, I'm turning in this badge. I'm done. Just to clock out, go home, and come back the next time with a new spirit, a new mindset, and I'm ready to tackle that next day at work. All right. The last one, step outside your comfort zone. So I always tell people your comfort zone is your enemy. That's short and sweet. It's your enemy. You staying in your comfort zone, there's nothing wrong with learning how to do something and get comfortable in it. It's staying there is the problem. So if someone says something to you like, hey, do you want to be charged today? If they allow that, you're like, no, no, I don't want to be charged because I've never did that before. Well, of course you never did that before. You also were never a nurse before. There's always a day one for everything and everyone. So step out your comfort zone. If it's somebody that you trust, he or she will kind of guide you throughout the process of being, say, a charge nurse. Or maybe there's a procedure that you typically don't want to do. Maybe you're learning how to do a bladder scan for the first time, and you want somebody to show you how to do it. My first time doing a bladder scan, the nurse let me practice on her before I went to the patient's room. And so she said, I have a full bladder, and let's see what you get if you do this right. She let me practice on her. Then she went to the bathroom, and then she let me practice on her again so I could see what it would look like when it's relatively empty. So she was helping me, and I really appreciate that. But I stepped out of my comfort zone enough to know that, you know what? Okay, the next time I can do that on my own. Or more personal for me, I am an educator, so I teach at a 4-year baccalaureate program for senior nursing students. And an opportunity came up for me to teach LPN students. Well, instead of me saying, well, no, I've never did that before, so I'm going to pass that job up, I said, no, I'm up for the challenge. I did tell the people, hey, I have no experience teaching LPNs anything. And so I do realize I'm going to have to, not per se dumb it down, but LPNs are at a different scope of practice than RNs. So therefore I had to kind of bring down my teaching some to where their scope was and make sure I didn't cross into the RN scope when they are not going to school to be RNs. So if I had have passed up that opportunity, I wouldn't have the experience that I have today with teaching those types of students. Therefore, I was out of my comfort zone, but then I soon got comfortable with that. And then after that, I moved on into teaching LPN to RN students. So students who already have an LPN degree and now they're pursuing their RN degree. That's a different mindset altogether than the LPN or the RN student, the traditional students. So I had to then change my thought processes as these students already know how to be LPNs. They're already licensed in that. Now I need to figure out how am I going to bridge the gap between them to say, okay, you know what? This is the major key differences between the LPN scope of practice and the RN scope of practice, and telling them to change their mindset as they move from or transition from that role to their new role as a registered nurse. So again, I stepped out of my comfort zone. There is no growth in your comfort zone. You will always be where you're going to be if you stay in your comfort zone. So remember that. I'm pursuing my doctoral degree, as many of you already know who've watched my videos before. And do you honestly think that that didn't scare me? It still scares me, actually. And so I definitely wanted to embark on this journey knowing this is going to be difficult, knowing this is a path less taken from many of my counterparts. Out of all the people that I hang with, none of my closest friends have doctoral degrees. I'm the only one. So they're looking to me for inspiration and should they go on and things like that. I decided I wanted to get this degree because I wanted something different. I wanted to move in a different direction. You have to get out of your comfort zone. I'm not comfortable. When you're not comfortable, that means you're doing something right. So think about that. And I'm not talking about in a situation where you feel uneasy about something. Those are two different things. I'm talking about in a situation where you feel, you're just anxious because you don't know where you should be and how this is going to go, not because you're placed in a dangerous situation. Those are two different things. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of come on here and touch base with you about basically 10 tips for survival for your first year of nursing. If you have any comments, please put them below in the comment section. Any questions as well, put them as in the same place. And if you are new to my channel, I love this part. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you'll know the next time that I upload. If you are an oldie but goodie, you welcome back. I'm so happy that you've come back and you want to see what else is going on in the lounge. I just recorded a video today on shopping my stash, my makeup and beauty stash. So I'll have that uploaded as well at some point. But we talk about, in case y'all don't know, we talk about nursing, of course, because I am a registered nurse. But in addition to that, we talk about beauty, makeup, fashion, and lifestyle. I am a fitness, I wouldn't say junkie per se, but being a registered nurse and having patients and family members who have died or became gravely ill due to comorbidities that they could have prevented by eating and eating correctly, exercising, not smoking, not drinking. I want to take the initiative on my own health to make sure that I'm doing things the right way. So you will see different videos, especially in my outro video, that I, exercise. I'm trying to get fit. I am the mother of 4, so that is a journey because, once you gain all that weight from having babies, it's very difficult. But anyway, enough rambling. Until the next time, you all take care. Bye-bye.